What if the version of yourself everyone praises is the very version making you sick? For so many women, being good means being agreeable, selfless, accommodating, dependable, the one who carries everyone else's needs while quietly abandoning their own. But what happens when a lifetime of self-betrayal starts showing up in the body? In this powerful conversation, filmmaker and author Sara Hirsh Bordo shares how her journey through autoimmune disease, trauma, and identity collapse led her to a profound realization. Sometimes healing begins the moment we stop performing who the world needs us to be and start telling the truth about who we are. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan. This show is all about bringing hope, connection, awareness, and wisdom through meaningful conversations that inspire us to be better versions of ourselves and have a positive impact on humanity. This is your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with who you are, what you care about, and who you want to be. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Sara Hirsh Bordo. Sara was named as an architect of change by Maria Shriver. She is a 20-time award-winning filmmaker and founder and CEO of Women Rising, and also listed as one of the most innovative, interesting, and purpose-driven women-led startups to watch by Inc. magazine. Within 18 months of her 42nd birthday, Sara was diagnosed with melanoma, multiple breast and ovarian tumors, active Epstein-Barr, heavy metal poisoning, and mold poisoning, in addition to debilitating flare-ups of the autoimmune disease Hashimoto's thyroiditis, with which she was diagnosed at age 30. Sara was sick and tired of being sick and tired, so she created and funded the first sociological survey exploring the intersection of autoimmunity and the empowerment in women, which resulted in her very new book, Autoimmunity and the Good Girls: How Permission to Put Ourselves First Has the Power to Keep Us Well. Finally, she recently launched Behind the Page, Autoimmunity and the Good Girls, which is a 10-episode series of conversations culled from the over 50 hours of interviews she conducted while researching the book. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm just honored and delighted to be here.
Okay, so we're going to start where we started to start right before we got on here. And so for viewers, you can see the beautiful butterfly wings that are virtually coming out of Sara's. And I had made a joke about her just, flying. And she, I'm going to lead her. She basically jumped right in, and we started to have a moving moment, and we decided let's do it right here.
Well, in preparation for our visit today, and really thank you again so much for having me. This is such a really intentional space that you have created for the betterment of all of us. So thank you so very much indeed. In catching up with how I thought today might go, I was listening to a couple of recent episodes and was listening to the fantastically powerful interview conversation that you had with Blake Bauer. And if your listeners haven't caught up to that one yet, run, don't walk, because it was really, really something special. And within that conversation, you invited Blake to speak about a butterfly metaphor that you had read in his book. And I have not read his book. So when I listened to that interview today, and it was very moving for you, and then Blake recounted the story, I said to myself, oh my gosh, I wonder what Dr. Dan is going to think when when I turn on my video camera and you see the butterfly yet again.
And it's a beautiful butterfly. And the metaphor is actually I'm interested. I want to tie it together for those who haven't listened,
Yes.
and I want to hear
Yes.
your connection. The butterfly wings are beautiful. As we know, the butterflies are beautiful. And the story relates to the process and the struggle of
Mhm.
becoming a butterfly,
Mhm.
and how painful it is, and how uncertain it is, and how it's really one of survival and I would say like evolution. And what comes out on the other side is beautiful, but along the way, one feels lost, one breaks down literally and metaphorically all aspects of oneself. And I can comfortably say, I feel from learning about you and your work and your book, that that has been a very similar process for yourself.
Mm, thank you. My, let's say my chrysalis for this chrysalis metaphor began a little bit differently than Blake's. I think spirit totems are all around us. I think spirit speaks through us in many, many different shapes, forms, times, moments. And I know that the butterfly landed very nearby to Blake, and that was sort of the birthplace of that kind of insight and a little bit of a rabbit hole for him. For me, it was a little bit different. So I write in the book that I was on a river cruise with my mother, escorting her and having a lovely time. But there was only so much of sort of the gentle walkers group that I was able to stomach after about 6 days. And I just needed to kind of go for a run. So I ended up landing in this really beautiful museum in Cologne, Germany. And as I'm touring the museum with a short amount of time, I end up in this tiny room that I didn't realize until I walked in there, but that it was all works from a female artist. And which is very rare, very, very rare. And I was buckled at the knees when I saw this huge installation. And it was a very abstract, but very loud and clear representation for me of a butterfly. But it wasn't typically beautiful, and it wasn't balanced, and it wasn't harmonious with a color palette. It was, to me, it looked like she had been through war. The patterns almost made it look like she had been bruised and battered. There were portions that were really vivid and sort of almost these kind of luminous moments of, let's say, peace, but so much of the butterfly were two wings that looked like it told a journey. So I look at the placard at the wall, Dan, and it in French. It was in French, but the English translation is Memories of a Butterfly. And I immediately understood that journey. And so I began to actually write, what would the monologue of the butterfly be if I was able to hand her a microphone? And that is how I opened the book.
You do, and it's poetic. And I was imagining you standing in that room, having this experience. And it is one of those, as they say, ineffable experiences, right? Where you just can't find the words for what is happening and what is moving through you.
Mm.
Um, so beautiful metaphor, and the wings behind you are beautiful, and they're not battered. And
They're uneven. And when I asked a designer friend to help me with them, I really just wanted almost an icon of transformation with me through this process. I am an introvert who identifies on the spectrum. This journey of being front and center for one of my productions, if you like. I'm normally totally the backseat with my subject or my crew, and this is very uncomfortable. If I could have hired someone to play me through this journey, I probably would. So the wings actually give me courage. And in essence, I think at the end of the day, the book is a handhold for women through transformation. I don't believe we're here to stay the same. I believe we're here to rise and fall and rise again. And I believe that at the end of the day, it absolutely is what doesn't kill us, strengthens us to get us to that, next altitude. And that's the journey of the butterfly.
Well, thank you for being here and your courage in being here. And I know from what I have listened to and read, as difficult as these sort of speaking engagements are, the purpose by which you show up and what you have been called to do is what keeps you in these situations, stretching yourselves because there's a message that you need to deliver.
Thank you, friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really lovely.
Yeah. And I want to, for everyone listening, how the paradoxes that we humans have, because Sara has no problem standing in front of 5,000 people and introducing any one of her projects or any one of the speakers or any of the multitude of
100,000 is fine.
100,000,
Yeah.
100,000, right? Introducing Michelle Obama, right? Like all of these things, but like sitting and it being focused on you. And that is, a lot of people feel that. So just for all of us, we have so many complexities, just as the butterfly does. So you spent over 15 years telling other women's stories. And all of a sudden you found yourself needing to tell yours. And now what we know is like, that's not something you want to do. Like, that's not something you're like, sign me up or raise my hand. But what you went through compelled you to do so. And I'm going to do a spoiler alert, because I would like everyone listening, who I think is already listening intently, to listen even more so, because of all the things that I mentioned that you experienced medically. And there's more than even that was mentioned. After you went through your own metamorphosis and process, though you did not, either those syndromes or diseases no longer existed, and or you did not qualify for having them, anyway we want to put that. And so it's really important that everyone listening know that this is not just conceptual. This is a process where one can heal in other ways than we are taught to think about how we can heal. And it's real.
Thank you. Yes, the spoiler. Why not read the back page sometimes? But yes, all of those diagnoses are either in remission or have disappeared completely.
Okay, now we're backing up, because we're going to get people there, because everyone's going to know how. Of course, you're going to, tell them a bit about it. So it's my turn. Like, I have to tell my story. So what was the impetus or the collective impeti, if that's even a word, that got you to the point where you're, I have to do this?
I think I'm still asking, I think I'm still asking that question at times, but this morning when I was in my meditation and preparing for today's interviews, I reminded myself that the work I've done has never been about me, but it's been about issues I care about. And so when I began this work, it was really more of a hunch. I found it fascinating, Dan, that everyone around me who was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition either was the eldest or the only daughter in their family. And being a documentary filmmaker, that's like a dog with a bone. I wanted to understand more. So I surveyed 300 women, and 70% of them with autoimmune disease were either the eldest or the only daughter. So then I was like, okay, there's something here, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I'm busy working on these other films. And so I'll just let it breathe and I'll know when it's time. And just before COVID, I was diagnosed with the list that you went through. And when lockdown happened, I was literally locked down and locked in with a bunch of diagnoses that no doctors really had recommendations for except take more thyroid medication and, just keep checking in with us and, do what you can. Maybe you need an antidepressant. You seem high strung. A lot of sort of the normal fare of what we're told when we have, let's say, patterns that resonate with us as something is here that no one is understanding, but I know it's real. And for me, I just started, basically on a big white wall in my apartment. I started thinking about the last year and how many times I did things or said yes to things that I didn't really want to do. How many times had I self-compromised? How many times have I self-betrayed, self-neglected? I was exhausted. I was completely depleted financially, emotionally, all of the above. And I felt like I was dying. I could barely go to the bathroom by myself. I couldn't travel by myself. I couldn't carry, a piece of luggage. And this is someone who's been, running around on film sets for a long time. And one of the doctors that I had spoken with had asked me this question. He said, "Why are you killing yourself one wrong choice at a time?"
He started with beloved.
Yeah, he did. And just to soften the blow. And I told him to fuck off
Right.
in my mind,
Yeah.
but because I'm a born and raised good girl, hell hath no fury, like a good girl who feels like she's disappointed somebody. So I just, told him I would give it some thought. And so then I actually took that inquiry, and sometimes it's the most uncomfortable invitations that take us the furthest. And that is when I started to write the questions at the top. It's like, if I've made wrong choices that have gotten me this sick, when did that start? And so my mother, in her amazing Southern ways, had always kept this medical folder for each of my siblings and I. And I asked her to send it over. And I started mapping to the beginning of my chronic conditions. And
Age 8, shingles at age 8.
Shingles at age 8, about 2 months after I had been molested at a friend's house. And I think that my good girl nature, and I've interviewed so many women that I think a lot of us have this sort of textured memory of, when did I stop being me so that I could start being good? And good, I mean by dutiful first over authentic, self-betraying because it made you feel safe or belonged in a family. These elements of so many of us that are raised in a family dynamic where we simply need to do a bit of identity gymnastics in order to feel that we fit. And And for me, that was at 3.5 years old, my twin brothers were born. And I remember overnight, Dan, I had 2 hands to hold one night. And the next day, I didn't have any
Hmm.
because my mom was raising, looking after one and my dad the other. And this is not about blaming. This is not about a victim posture, even though I carried that very proudly at the beginning of this work.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to get to the place where I now believe very, very, very much that a self in compromise is creating an immune system in compromise. And that is when I believe that I started to tell my body a different story.
Mm. I was imagining with what your functional medicine doctor told you. It's layered, so it's so interesting. So because you mentioned his name, so I know male, is like a male doctor telling, in some respects, a female patient who has a myriad of diseases and illnesses that it's her fault. And how in one lens it looks like we're just habituating the message that contributes to all of the programming that females go through, and what you and so many experienced. And yet, that was not the intended message or ultimately how you received it.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. If we started talking about women not being heard or listened to or gaslit or any myriad of the terms that are used of the female medical experience, we would be here for the length of a Bible. But what it catalyzed in me was a fire to start looking for answers from new places. And when I started seeing these echoes from chronic strep throat to the shingles to chronic sinus infections to the breast tumors in my early 20s to I just started mapping a lifetime of the diagnoses. And I found the echoes within each of these periods of time, that these moments and phases of life that I was more focused on outside value than inside authenticity. I was either diagnosed with something new or in relapse almost every time. I was, another spoiler, we are just loading it up, my friend. I was raped when I was 28 years old. And a year and a half later, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And I know that I'm not alone, and because I've spent so much time connecting with other women about this. There are so many women who have short and long-term traumatic experiences with diagnoses that follow. And I very, very much believe that is a component of the book, which is a very tragic invitation. But sometimes, especially as good girls, it takes us a little while to self-prioritize. It's not comfortable. It's almost painful to put ourselves first, routinely listen to our own needs, build a relationship that our body is not just a messenger, but do we know how to listen to the messages? There is a very important toolkit that a lot of us raised to be good or raised to be the conditioned caretaker as little girls are working on, in my language, rewiring that operating system.
Yep.
And so I just hope the book is, just a handhold through that experience for others.
Well, it is. And you are the guide and you are the example. And again, you did not set out to write a book. You set out to figure out what the heck happened to you and why this is happening and put the pieces together. And because you are a documentary filmmaker, you chase the story, and then when there's a story, you're going to share the story. And um, it's a powerful story. 80% of diagnoses of autoimmune disease is in the female population. Oh, and before we continue, I think it's important. I loved your definition. Like, we hear autoimmune all the time, and I don't know that everyone always knows what that actually means, but I loved your
Right.
definition of, talking about how our bodies are at war with ourselves. So please share.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Dan. There are over 140 autoimmune diseases on record. Some of those that might sound familiar are everything from Hashimoto's, which is mine, to multiple sclerosis, to lupus, to celiac disease, to ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's, Raynaud's phenomenon, vitiligo, endometriosis is also categorized as an autoimmune disease. And these are all, I really look to the Autoimmune Association for their master list. A couple of other things that autoimmune diseases are kind of known for right now: there isn't a cure for a single one. Not one. Doctors and scientists worldwide are looking for contributing factors. What could they tie? What could they look for, one experience to cue another? There are many, in the last couple of years, very prominent studies around why it's happening in a female body. It relates to the X chromosome, the double X chromosome. But to me, not being a scientist and not being a doctor, I speak story. So when I started to really basically unpack the operating system of autoimmunity, a healthy immune system is able to recognize its healthy cells from its unhealthy cells. So when our immune system is really in harmony, and I love to use the word coherence towards the end of the book. So when our immune system is really humming as it's designed to, it's able to identify and recognize one sort from the other. A body that has autoimmunity or an autoimmune disease that is active and diagnosed, the immune system can't recognize itself. So it begins to attack cells that might be healthy. And to me, I saw that as, so it's an immune system in identity crisis. And then when I thought about how the body listens, how our immune systems listen, epigenetics and environment, and how all of these components, I thought to myself, back to my good girl conditioning. Well, I've been playing out a good girl character that my family has needed for a very, 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 very long time. But is that authentically Sarah? And then I put together, well, maybe if I've never known exactly who I am, why would my immune system be able to recognize itself when I haven't been able to recognize myself? Mm. And that is where identity immunity became this I mean, it was just sort of this obsession. And that was really the birthplace of, I think I understand a contributing factor humbly from my posture, what I might be able to contribute that might be another conversation for especially women to have So I greenlit my own research of 1,000 American women with autoimmune diseases, and lo and behold, echoes everywhere.
Yes. Well, and as you have stated, there is no cure
No.
to these over 140 autoimmune diseases, and yet you yours are gone, or in remission, or gone. And so I'm going to be maybe bold on your behalf. We can use cures in different ways, but there is a way to cure. There is a way to cure because you have, and as you started to name, these ideals that good girls are raised. I would say women at large, and then particularly good girls. Having many wonderful women in my life, is that do the right thing, do what other people want, um, ignore yourself, ignore your values, ignore your identity, change who you are for others. And again, you talked about for safety. In many cases, it's for safety and security. It's also conditioning that happens at a very early age. We don't know we're being conditioned, and it's everywhere. It's in media. It's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, um, I was thinking as I was learning about you, your work, reading your book, I was thinking about your strength. It made me think of the strength of Martha Beck, um, and the way of integrity, because the through lines are when you start to make changes, also known as getting healthy, other people don't like it. It's hard for other people. I love the saying that I'm going to say not maybe entirely accurately, which is when you get boundaries, the only people that don't like that you have boundaries are the ones that benefited from you not having any. Right? So
Perfect. Yeah.
boundaries,
Perfect.
boundaries aren't comfortable for other people when you start using your voice, when you say, no, I'm not going to participate in that. Actually, I feel differently about that. No, that tradition and ritual doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to do that. Um, and I don't have to tell you why. I'm just not going to. I mean, to name a few. And then let's go even farther with actually to beginning to value oneself, to practice real, what we call self-care, also overused, but really self-value, like you're worth it.
Yes.
And all of these things that you list and talk about in the book, and so many of the folks in the book talk about and have experience with as well, they all seem to be these very like simple common sense things. Like, yeah, put yourself first, say what's on your mind, don't do anything you don't want to do. And yet, cumulatively, they are profound in the fork in the road between dis-ease and health.
I love all of that, and yes, and I don't think I was remotely prepared for what self-prioritizing for my own wellness would do as it relates to upsetting members of my family. I come from a very large Southern Lebanese family. I grew up in Texas. And for me, I come from a mom who was an eldest daughter, who is a cancer survivor and autoimmune diagnosed woman. I come from a grandmother who was an eldest daughter, a cancer survivor, and an autoimmune diagnosed woman. And when I came around, all the women around me were living out a very honoring, maternal, nurturing set of skills and gifts that created beautiful households and created, beautiful families. What I will say though is that the men and the, let's call it lineage traditions of what everyone was very comfortable with women doing, being, behaving, I believe 1,000,000% contributed to all of the women in my family's illness. Now, illnesses, may I say. Now, when I started setting my boundaries, and I totally had to Google, how does one set a boundary? And I, clumsily began. And that's the other thing I think is really important for all the women listening, and quite honestly, all of the loved ones that are listening. When you have lived a lifetime of deprioritization and difficulty of receiving and discomfort in receiving and asking for help, when you give it a go, it is so uncomfortable and it is so frightening, because we're worried about what's going to happen from the people that care about us, love us, but the people that are also used to seeing us one way. A male member of my family told me that my newfound feminism was putting our family in distress and that I needed to apologize.
I am sure that the first part of that was very accurate. And I'm quite certain, given that the road you were on, you did not do the latter.
I write in the book, I decided that I wouldn't apologize, so I got a worldwide publishing deal with HarperCollins instead.
Not only you're going to take it outside the family, you're going to go big.
But he and I are doing better now. These transitions and these transformations take time, but women everywhere cannot stay suppressed. It is making us sick. It makes it harder for us to heal. I am not the first person to bring this forward, but I am one of you. And I think that for me, I just really wanted to be able to provide a humble roadmap, because we have to unbecome to become. And everything I'm describing conceptually sounds daunting, exhausting, overwhelming. Thanks, but I'll stay where I am. But we can't do that. We have done that for centuries, and we have completely lost connection with our own self.
To that point, you quote Tanya Markle. Sometimes the scariest bridge to burn is the one between you and the person you thought you were.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah, this is where like the amount of courage that it takes, I was going to say to change, but it's really to transform. I don't think change is a big enough word, right? Right. Transform. The wings, everybody. For those of you just listening, Sarah's pointing to the wings. Transformation. I mean, it's scary. It takes a ton of courage. And a lot of what you talk about is going from the external to the internal, or from the extrinsic to the intrinsic. And that can't be more true in this process, because the external, especially if you're a good girl and you have decades and a lot of awards and accolades for being a good girl, it comes from lots of external validation. And that's the last thing you're going to get by most of the people who are used to you being a certain way, when you all of a sudden start to prioritize yourself, speak your truth, do what you want and don't do what you don't want. It's like it's the opposite of what a good girl is used to getting.
Yes. I think there's a lot of data in the book as well. It's not only the research amongst 1,000 women and the numbers that go along with that data, but also I included as many of their voices in the book as I could. I also interviewed other eldest daughters, other younger daughters, who, by the way, all of the youngest daughters that I interviewed are all well, have never been diagnosed with an autoimmune or a chronic condition. They grew up with a level of freedom, Dan, and this container of childhood that lasted a lot longer than a lot of the women like me, and like us. One of the elements that I asked other women about their girlhoods was around what kind, how important was perception of being seen as nice or good. How much did that affect the decisions that you made on a day-to-day basis now? And I think, yeah, 84% of women who were raised as a caretaker say that they don't make certain decisions because they don't want to disappoint the people that they love. So this fear of disappointing is such a powerful narrative, Dan. It is so powerful. It has so much fear attached to it that tethers so many of us. And I think that for those listening, those loved ones listening, those, loved ones of wives who have diagnoses or loved ones of daughters, when we feel that our wants and needs are remotely allowed, that is a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
It's a breakthrough, and the smallest amount of permission that our loved ones can speak to us around that freedom and permission, it is more powerful than you will ever know.
Yeah, and that brings me to us men, because there is a lot there when I think about myself as a son, as a partner, as a husband, and as a father to two young women. How critical men are in this this drama.
We cannot do it without you.
Right.
Yes. I mean, we need. I've never made a film about a woman or a girl, or an event or a stage about a woman or a girl, where I haven't had male allies on that production or behind that story.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that issues facing women and girls are just women and girls to solve. I do not believe that. I absolutely do not believe that. And I believe that it's why the word feminist is not used once in my book. That isn't a road that I find very
Right.
supportive for this. And so I very, very much believe that the men in our lives actually have the power to help us override these conditionings so much faster.
Yes. And so let's break it down simple. And I'm thinking in just a few ways as our time is marching on here. What can men do to help? And I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, but I also like it to me is it's simple in concept. I know men are programmed as well.
Of
And they're
course,
programmed by, millennia and generations and just current generation of the male programming as well. That said, we all can do different and better. What do partners and fathers and bosses and coaches and teachers, name it? What can we do?
I believe let's just sort of start at the base of the pyramid, if you will. around the concept of permission. The journey forward is women giving themselves more self-permission to have an opinion, to have a need, to accept that they're a human and that a human being has needs and wants that are a birthright. If you are a man at home and you have a wife or a partner or a beloved who is living with some sort of chronic condition, at the end of the day, when you say, "Are you okay?" and she says she is fine, I would argue that the majority of the time she is saying that because she doesn't want to inconvenience you. And if you offered, "What do you need?" and she says nothing, give her two options. Do you want a pillow under your legs or do you want something to eat? If neither of those is resonating as useful, helpful, or supportive, you've given her permission to give you a third option.
Hmm.
Let's take a dad for a daughter, for example. There is nothing more valuable than a father giving a daughter permission to be heard when it's quiet. Chances are that daughter wants, her innate programming is to want to be seen as good, loved, and safe. In your household, if she is getting quiet and she doesn't want, and she's not coming forward with a need or a want or an ask, chances are she's quiet because she doesn't know how to speak the need or the want. If she's not a verbal person, put a note under her door. Let her reply back and put it outside of the door. There's a lot of pressure, especially in the younger generation, to speak and to have a conversation around things that are vulnerable, especially if they have a father who is very busy and who maybe doesn't have regular ways of inviting conversation. Starting small with, "How was your day?" under the door with a pen. A lot of times, women and girls, especially younger, they need to feel invited. At the office, you are working with men, male bosses and male colleagues. The amount of women living and working with chronic conditions, they certainly very well may look fine. There are ways, again, sometimes with a male colleague, sometimes with a female leader in HR. I think chances are, if you're able to understand if a female colleague was the eldest daughter in her family, you're starting kind of with a bit of safeguard conditioning to understand that she's hardwired to people please. Men have a very natural, empowered set of permissions to feel more comfortable speaking up than women ever have.
Yes.
So if
Yeah.
women are more quiet in the office, find a way to manage them quietly but safely in a way that they could bring forward either via a survey or anonymously. 47% of the women in my study said that they quiet their voices in their doctor's offices because they don't want to disappoint them or be seen as extra trouble. So if women who are diagnosed with an incurable condition are being silenced by themselves in a doctor's office, you can imagine that probably part of that is carrying over into the workplace.
Yes. And how about women? How do women support women in individually and collectively getting healthy and restoring well-being?
I think if we had that figured out, we would be healthier as a gender than we are.
You're our leader. Come on, you are our leader.
But
Tell us.
I'm telling you, I started and founded my production company, Women Rising, because I was told by a female boss who I revered that I belonged in an apron, not an office.
I couldn't believe it when I read that.
At the end of the day, because women in any kind of authority role, and I mean authority with a little a, not even a big A, but a little a, we are still trying to understand how to compete in a way that, men have competed physically for millennia. Women compete more emotionally. The love of a father, the look of a teacher, the grade, the cool boy, the better outfit. And we graduate with these female emotional competition tactics as we get older. I think that we are doing better now. I want to believe that we are doing better now than we ever have. I believe that women authentically want to support another woman and they want to be supported by that woman in return. We will never achieve wholeness individually and as a gender unless we realize that we actually all have power simultaneously. It isn't about power over another one of us, but it's power among us. And I'm always going to be a fan for telling your story, no matter how small, big, loud, quiet you can be. I think that women hearing other women's stories are what the permission slips are really about.
Yeah, I was going to close by asking you what's, a place for people to start. And I think you just said it, right? I just the act of telling your story, of course, to first someone who is trusted. It still might be, it's scary, right? Telling your story, your private story, but just getting it out. We know that there's healing power in telling stories. You do it for a living. You know this as well as anyone. And so is it fair to say we encourage people, we encourage women, we encourage girls, we encourage teenagers, adults of any age to tell their story as a step towards reclaiming their health and their identity?
And I would even take that in a minute level, and I would say saying that you're in pain is telling your story. Saying you need a glass of water is telling your story.
Yes.
Saying that you're hungry is telling your story. Saying that it would be nice if you didn't have to cook dinner is telling your story.
Yes.
I think that these elements of truth telling is where I would most love for women to begin to give themselves permission, and for other women to give other women the same permission.
Sara, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan.
There is so much in your book, Autoimmunity and the Good Girls. Like, we just hit the tip of the iceberg. There's some spoilers, but we left a lot to chew on and to uncover in those pages. It's human, it's science, it's all of it wrapped up together with ways to get healthy, with ways that you got healthy and ways that other people can as well. Tell everyone where to find it, you, everything you're doing.
Golly. Okay. Autoimmunity and the Good Girls, How Permission to Put Ourselves First Has the Power to Keep Us Well, is available now for pre-order wherever books are sold, and audiobooks. It's available in the US as of June the 2nd, and 11 other countries starting in July.
And as the time, it's literally when we launch, it will have just gone live maybe a couple days before. So everyone, you don't even have to pre-order by the time you're listening to this. You can go actually order it. And your podcast, your short series, also interesting information.
Thank you. I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of taste of support from all these experts before June, because I felt that was a long time to wait. But everything is available at goodgirlsbook.com.
Awesome. Best of luck. You are in purpose, and I'm excited to see where you're going to take this, and we are fully supportive of supporting you and this movement in helping our women, our girls, reclaim their health.
Thank you, Dan.
Sara's work is transformational. Here are 5 key takeaways from this conversation. Number 1, autoimmunity may not just be physical, it can reflect years of self-abandonment and identity suppression. Number 2, many women are conditioned to prioritize being good over being authentic, often at the cost of their health. Number 3, healing starts with permission. Permission to rest, speak up, ask for help, and put yourself first. Number 4, men play a critical role in helping women feel safe enough to express their needs and truth. And number 5, transformation requires courage, because becoming who you truly are often means letting go of who everyone expected you to be. So much power in these concepts, in these words, and in Sara's mission to help us all understand the causes of autoimmune disease and what we can do about reducing them individually and as a collective. We are interested in what you think about this episode, so please feel free to leave us a comment at Dr. Dan Peters on Instagram or reply to any of our social posts. Please share this show with anyone and everyone you think will benefit so they can access this critical information for our health. Thank you for being a part of our amazing community, for bringing your wonderful people to us, for your 5-star reviews, for subscribing. And as always, we have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Uplifting Folk by Awesome Music. Artwork by Kelly Dwyer. Follow us on social media at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, visit drdanpeters.com.